What if the most powerful transformation doesn't happen in a crowd, but in a quiet moment by the water? What if the first person to open her heart in a new land wasn't who anyone expected? What if your life could change, not through pressure, but through a simple moment of listening? Paul and his companions had just followed a vision into unfamiliar territory. Macedonia was new ground, a place where the message of Jesus had not yet taken deep root. They arrived in Philippi, a leading city in the region, filled with culture, influence, and activity. But something was missing. There was no synagogue, no obvious place to begin, no clear audience waiting. For many, that might have felt like another obstacle, another moment of uncertainty. But Paul didn't stop. He looked for something smaller, something quieter. On the Sabbath day, they went outside the city gate, by the river, where they expected to find a place of prayer. And there, they found a group of women gathered, not a large crowd, not a powerful assembly, just a few people seeking God. Sometimes the biggest movements begin in the smallest places. Paul sat down and began to speak with them, not with force, not with pressure, just a conversation, a sharing of truth. And among them was a woman named Lydia. She wasn't ordinary. She was a dealer in purple cloth, a businesswoman from the city of Thyatira. Purple cloth was valuable, often associated with wealth and status. That meant Lydia was likely successful, independent, and respected. But beyond her success, she was searching. Scripture tells us she was a worshipper of God. She already believed in something greater. She already had a heart inclined toward truth, but she hadn't yet heard the full message. She hadn't yet encountered Jesus. And then, in that quiet moment by the river, everything changed. As Paul spoke, something happened that no human effort could produce. The Lord opened her heart. Think about that. Paul spoke the words, but God opened the heart. That's where transformation begins. Not in arguments, not in pressure, not in performance, but in a heart that becomes open. Lydia listened, not casually, not distracted. She listened deeply, and as she did, the message reached her. She believed. In that moment, faith became real, personal, alive, and her response was immediate. She was baptized, along with the members of her household. This wasn't just a private decision. It became a shared transformation. Her faith didn't stay hidden. It spread to those around her. Because real change is never isolated. It touches everything connected to it. But Lydia didn't stop there. Her story doesn't end with belief. It continues with action. She turned to Paul and his companions and made a bold request. "If you consider me a believer in the Lord," she said, "come and stay at my house." And she persuaded them. That's powerful, because it shows something important. Faith is not just about receiving, it's about responding. Lydia opened her heart, and then she opened her home. She didn't just accept the message, she became part of the mission. Her home became a place of support, a place of gathering, a place where the message could continue to grow. In many ways, Lydia became the foundation of the church in Philippi. And it all started with a quiet moment by the river. No stage, no spotlight, no audience of thousands, just a conversation, a listening heart, and a willingness to respond. Now let's pause and reflect on that, because Lydia's story speaks directly into our lives today. We live in a world that often values noise, attention, and visibility. We think impact requires scale. We think change requires a platform. But Lydia's story shows something different. Sometimes the most important moments happen in stillness, in simplicity, in spaces that don't look significant at first. A conversation, a message, a moment of openness, and everything shifts. But here's the deeper question. Why Lydia? Why her? There were other women by the river, other people listening, but something in her heart was ready. Open, receptive, willing. That's the difference, because truth can be spoken to many, but it transforms those who are ready to receive it. And readiness doesn't come from status. It doesn't come from success. It doesn't come from how much you know. It comes from the condition of your heart. Lydia had success, she had influence, she had stability, but she was still searching, still open, still willing to listen. And when the moment came, she responded. That's what made the difference. Now think about your own life. How often are you surrounded by noise, distractions, constant movement, information everywhere? But how often do you slow down enough to truly listen? Because sometimes the message you need most doesn't come through noise, it comes through stillness, through a quiet moment, through a conversation you didn't expect, through a voice that speaks not loudly, but clearly. And the question is, will you be open? Because the truth is, many people hear, but not everyone listens. Many people receive information, but not everyone allows it to change them. Lydia listened, and her life changed. But her story also shows something else. The power of influence. Not influence in the modern sense, followers, attention, recognition, but influence through action, through generosity, through opening what she had for something greater. She didn't keep her faith private, she shared it, she supported it, she made space for it to grow. And because of that, others were impacted. That's how real influence works, not by being seen, but by creating space for something meaningful to happen. Lydia's home became that space, and from that space, a community would grow, lives would be changed, faith would spread, all because one person said yes. And that's the invitation in this story. Not just to hear, not just to believe, but to respond, to open your heart, and then open your life. Because faith is not just something you hold, it's something you live, something you share, something you build with. Lydia didn't wait. She didn't hesitate, she stepped into it, and that step created a ripple effect. Now imagine what could happen if more people did the same, if more people were open, if more people were willing to listen deeply, if more people responded with action. The impact would be greater than we can imagine, because transformation doesn't need a crowd, it needs a heart, and that heart can be yours. Right now, in this moment, maybe you're searching, maybe you're curious. Maybe you're feeling something you can't fully explain. That's where Lydia was. And in that moment, everything changed. Not because of pressure, not because of force, but because she was open. And maybe that's all it takes. A moment, a decision, a willingness to listen. And from there, a new chapter begins it by that river. Just like it did for Lydia, a quiet beginning, a powerful future. And it all starts with an open heart. Thank you for watching this video. If this message touched you, don't forget to like, follow Holy Path Insights, and share this video with someone who might need to hear